New Jersey is looking for new ways to deal with autism. The state says the number of public school students diagnosed with autism tripled between 2002 and 2010 to more than 13,000 in the schools. But autism itself may soon be redefined, and that worries a lot of parents. Joining us now from the Harvard Medical School, a frequent lecturer here in New Jersey and co-author of the new book, Raising Resilient Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder, Dr. Robert Brooks. Good of you. It's good to see you again,
Thanks
my friend.
so much for having me.
This looming redefinition, how much will it impact the children and their families?
Well, it can impact them a great deal in terms of the services they may get. But what we really try to say in the book is what are the symptoms of autism and how can we help those kids who demonstrate those symptoms. So while there may be some kids who no longer fall under the autism umbrella and the parents may really have to fight for services, still, I feel there are things we can do, even if they don't fall under that category or that diagnosis, to help their development along.
What's the most important thing and the first thing that parents should be doing?
Well, early intervention is critical. There's so many studies that show if you early on, when the child is already 18 months or 2 years, you already see signs in terms of their poor language development, in terms of they're not connecting with the parents, is to make sure that you speak to your pediatrician. There are so many services now available for young kids. So the sooner you can start addressing the problems in social skills, language problems, because often these kids have delayed language and what's called delayed pragmatics. They really can't have a conversation. It's called pragmatics of language. Language pragmatics has to do with the give and take. They may know words, but they can't keep a conversation going. So you can help them certainly with that.
How do you know, as a parent, when a child has this as a issue and a profound impact on their life, and if the kid's just not a quiet kid, a shy kid, a thoughtful child?
It's a wonderful question. What I always say to parents is, look, if you're worried about your child, don't go to bed each night worried. First of all, speak to your pediatrician. Hopefully the pediatrician is very well versed in this, and sometimes then you can get an evaluation. Because you're right, even the autism spectrum, there's a wide spectrum. There are some kids on the autism spectrum at the higher level, we'll say Asperger's, who are going to be functioning at a much higher level than those on a lower, part of the spectrum. But don't worry, I say to parents, make sure you consult professionals. There's nothing wrong with that, because if your child already at 2 or 2.5 is showing certain symptoms and you're concerned about them, then it's time to really perhaps get an evaluation.
You have promoted a wonderful concept called the islands of competence.
Yeah.
And I guess it's finding that one thing or number of things in a child that really can spur them to take it to the next level. This applies with children within the autism spectrum as well?
Right. Originally we wrote the book Raising Resilient Children, I did with Sam Goldstein, but now we really wanted to expand it to children on the autism spectrum to say we shouldn't write off kids, that even children on the autism spectrum, we can use their interests or islands of competence to relate to them. I remember one boy I saw who loved baseball statistics. He could spend all day just on baseball statistics. Well, what his father did is his father got baseball cards, and together they started to converse. His father took him to a baseball game. So the father was using this kid's interest
to open his door to the outside world.
Exactly.
And other profound. When you see this, we talked about this at the top, the redefinition of what does that bother you? Does that worry you that labels are being shifted around and that services may not be available?
What I'm most concerned about if parents have to fight even more for services. I guess I've been in the field long enough to know that diagnoses shift all the time. But I don't want parents who are already feeling so anxious and so burdened to feel that they have to be climbing Mount Everest to get their services. So I hope it doesn't lead to that.
And the schools, New Jersey has some outstanding schools, has some not so outstanding schools. How much of an impact does that make on the ability of these children to mainstream?
Well, the problem is these kids, whatever you give their diagnosis, they're going to still show the behaviors they had, whether they had the diagnosis or not. So I hope all schools, whether a child goes in with a specific diagnosis, that the main factor should be, teachers should be asking, what is it that this child needs to really meet their greatest potential, their great potential, and how can we help this child to be more resilient, to bounce back?
Are most teachers aware and alert and trained and sensitive, do you think?
It really varies from one school to the next. And I've worked with some wonderful teachers who really would like to be better versed. And they'll say to me, I don't know what to do with this child. This is why a whole team approach, parents working closely with specialists, working closely with teachers, you're going to have the best result. When I work with kids on the autism spectrum, I'll tell you, I would have a room sometimes of 10 people with the parents and professionals there.
So more is better. And the team is what works.
Yeah.
Dr. Brooks, have to leave it there. Thanks so much for coming on in.
Thanks for having me here.